The message came on a Tuesday morning. Captain Lisa Mitchell stared at the screen, her coffee going cold beside her keyboard. The signal patterns were unlike anything she had ever seen before. After 15 years with the Earth Defense Force, she knew this was it. First contact. "John, come look at this," she called. Commander John Rivera hurried over from his station. His eyes widened as he looked at the screen. "Are those what I think they are?" he asked. "Ships. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands," Lisa confirmed, "moving in formation toward our solar system." John's face turned serious. "I'll call the general." Within hours, the highest-ranking military leaders from around the world gathered in an emergency video conference. The mood was tense as Lisa presented her findings. "Based on their speed and trajectory, we estimate they'll reach Earth in about 3 months, she explained. General Mason frowned. "Hostile or friendly?" Dr. Samantha Wells, the lead xenobiologist, spoke up. "Their formation suggests military organization. No peaceful exploration mission would approach with this many vessels." The room fell silent. "How advanced are they?" asked Admiral Eric Washington. Lisa pulled up another screen. "Their ships use technology we can barely understand. From what we can tell, they're centuries ahead of us." "So we're doomed," someone muttered. Admiral Washington stood up. "No, we're humanity. We don't give up before we've even started." The next day, the United Nations called an emergency session. For the first time in history, every nation agreed to work together. Old enemies shared military secrets. Border disputes were put aside. The entire planet focused on one goal: survival. In her lab, Dr. Wells analyzed the limited data on the approaching aliens. "They call themselves the Vraxians," she told Lisa. "From what we can gather from their communications, they'd conquered 17 other planetary systems." "Any weaknesses?" Lisa asked. Samantha smiled slightly. "They're overconfident. They expect us to surrender immediately. They've never failed a conquest before. Across the planet, factories switched from making cars to producing weapons. Computer programmers worked day and night to strengthen Earth's cyber defenses. Farmers stored food. Doctors prepared for casualties." Lisa visited one of the new training centers. Civilians from all walks of life learned basic combat skills. A school teacher practiced shooting next to a bus driver. A chef learned how to set traps alongside a librarian. "Do you think we have a chance?" asked Frank Rodriguez, the lead engineer working on modifying Earth's existing weapons. Lisa watched as he improved the targeting system on a conventional missile. "Honestly, the odds are terrible. But I've been studying their communication patterns. They're rigid, predictable. They expect us to fight like they do." "And we won't," Frank said with determination. "No," Lisa agreed. "We'll fight like humans." Meanwhile, in deep space, Admiral Kez Thull of the Vraxian Empire observed the approaching blue planet with satisfaction. This would be his 13th successful conquest. "Prepare the standard intimidation protocol," he ordered his second-in-command. 1,000 warships in visible orbit should be sufficient. "The scans show they've barely reached their own moon," his officer replied. "Their technology is primitive. We could take the planet with 1/10 of our forces." Admiral Kez Thull waved a long gray appendage dismissively. "Follow standard procedure. I want them to surrender without resistance. It saves resources." The officer bowed and left. Kez Thull turned back to the viewing screen. Another primitive species to add to the glory of the Vraxian Empire. He'd done this so many times before. The pattern never changed. Show overwhelming force, demand surrender, crush any foolish resistance. Little did he know that Earth was unlike any planet the Vraxians had encountered before. While his fleet approached with absolute confidence in their superiority, humans were preparing the most unconventional defense the galaxy had ever seen. Back on Earth, Lisa looked at the first clear images of the alien fleet and felt a chill. "There are so many of them," she whispered. John nodded grimly. "They outnumber us at least 100 to 1. Lisa's expression hardened. Then we'll just have to make sure numbers aren't what matters. The Global Defense Summit in Geneva brought together military leaders from every nation. They gathered in a large underground bunker, safe from potential alien surveillance. Maps and screens covered the walls, showing the approaching Vraxian fleet. Admiral Eric Washington stood at the front of the room. His voice was steady but grave. "We have 10 weeks before they arrive. Their technology is far beyond ours. Their weapons could destroy our cities in minutes. Their ships can block our missiles. Their armor can stop our bullets. If we fight them in a normal war, we will lose." The room was silent. Some looked down. Others stared ahead with blank faces. Then Major George Bailey stepped forward. He was younger than most others in the room, with bright eyes and a determined look. "We don't need to fight a normal war," he said. "We need to fight a human war." He tapped a screen, and a presentation appeared. The title read, "Project Hornet's Nest." "The Vraxians have conquered 17 planets," George explained. "Each time, they used the same approach. Overwhelming force. Standard tactics. They expect us to either surrender or fight like they do. We won't do either." Lieutenant Olivia Chen joined him at the front. "We've studied their communication patterns. They're highly organized, but not very flexible. They rely on central command for almost everything." She showed a diagram of the alien fleet structure. "If we can disrupt their chain of command, they'll struggle to adapt." Admiral Washington nodded. "What exactly are you proposing?" George smiled slightly. "A global guerrilla campaign. Not one army against another, but millions of small, independent resistance cells. We won't try to win big battles. We'll make it impossible for them to control the planet, no matter how many troops they have." The plan was approved. Earth had no choice but to try something radical. In the following weeks, Earth changed. Cities built underground shelters and tunnel systems. Factories worked day and night to produce not advanced weapons, but millions of simple, effective tools for resistance. Chief Engineer Frank Rodriguez led the effort to modify existing technology. In his main workshop in Detroit, he showed Lisa and John his latest creation. "We took regular farming drones and reprogrammed them," he explained, pointing to a small flying device. "They look harmless, but they can now detect Vraxian communication signals and create interference." "How many can we make?" Lisa asked. "Millions," Frank replied. "Every electronics factory on Earth is helping." In her lab in Boston, Dr. Alicia Diaz made an important discovery. She had been analyzing the limited data they had on Vraxian shield technology. "Their shields are designed to stop high-energy impacts," she explained to a group of scientists. "But they might be vulnerable to slower mechanical penetration." This insight led to the development of new weapons designed to bypass alien defenses rather than overpower them. Meanwhile, the public was being prepared. Schools taught basic resistance techniques. Hospitals trained for mass casualties. Food was stored. Every citizen had a role in the coming conflict. President Sofia Garcia addressed the world on television. Her message was honest but hopeful. "We face the greatest challenge in human history," she said. "But throughout our past, humans have overcome impossible odds through creativity, courage, and determination. We will not surrender our planet. We will defend our home." As Earth prepared, the Vraxian fleet moved closer. Admiral Kezful received regular updates on the approaching planet. "Their military forces are mobilizing," his intelligence officer reported, "but they have no space fleet, minimal orbital defenses, and primitive weapons technology." Kezful made a sound that, in Vraxian culture, indicated amusement. "They actually intend to resist. How futile." "Should we prepare for a longer campaign?" the officer asked. "Unnecessary," Kezful replied. "Prepare the standard invasion protocol. One demonstration strike to show our power, then demand surrender. If they refuse, we begin the full invasion." The officer hesitated. "Sir, our scouts report unusual activity. They're not gathering large armies or building conventional defenses. Their behavior doesn't match our previous conquest experiences. Kezful dismissed the concern with a wave. Primitive species often behave irrationally when faced with superior forces. It makes no difference to the outcome. Little did he know that Earth was setting a trap, one that would challenge everything the Vraxians thought they knew about warfare and conquest. The sky turned bright one morning as the Vraxian fleet arrived. 1,000 massive ships appeared near the moon, their metal shells gleaming in the sunlight. They were arranged in a perfect formation, a display of power and discipline. People across Earth looked up in fear and awe. This was no longer just a warning or a threat. The aliens were here. Admiral Kezful stood on the bridge of his command ship. His 4 arms were folded behind his back as he gazed at the blue planet. "Send the standard message," he ordered. Minutes later, every screen, radio, and communication device on Earth received the same broadcast. Admiral Kezful's face appeared. Gray skin, 6 yellow eyes, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. "People of Earth," he said in a deep voice that had been translated into all human languages, "I am Admiral Kezful of the Vraxian Empire. We have claimed your world as our newest territory. Your technology is primitive. Your defenses are weak. Surrender now and become useful members of our empire, or face complete destruction." In the United Nations Emergency Chamber, world leaders gathered to craft their response. President Sofia Garcia stood to address the alien transmission. "Admiral Kezful," she said firmly, "Earth has heard your demands. We have seen your ships and your weapons. We understand that you believe victory is certain." She paused, then continued with strength in her voice. "But humans do not surrender their home. We choose to fight." In his ship, Admiral Kezful watched the human response with all 6 eyes wide in surprise. Then he made that Vraxian sound of amusement again. "They refuse. How interesting. And foolish." He turned to his commanders. "Prepare a demonstration strike. Target the large uninhabited area in the northern continent. Minimal force, just enough to show our capability." "Yes, Admiral," his weapons officer responded. "Target locked on the area. Humans call Northern Canada." What the Vraxians didn't know was that this uninhabited area was far from empty. For weeks, under Project Hornet's nest, the region had been prepared. Underground sensors were hidden in the snow. Special equipment was buried beneath the ice. And most importantly, a team of Earth's best engineers and soldiers waited in hidden bunkers. Lisa Mitchell and John Rivera were among them, watching their screens as the alien ship positioned itself overhead. "They took the bait," John said quietly. Lisa nodded. "They're following their standard procedure exactly as Dr. Wells predicted. First a demonstration of power, then an ultimatum." "All teams in position?" John asked. "Yes, everyone is ready." The Vraxian ship fired. A beam of bright energy shot down from space. When it hit the ground, the snow and ice instantly vaporized. The beam cut a perfect circle 3 miles wide, melting everything to a depth of 100 feet. The display of power was meant to terrify humanity. Instead, it activated Earth's trap. The heat from the blast triggered hundreds of hidden devices. Each sent different signals, gathering crucial data about the Vraxian weapon. At the same time, other devices released special particles into the air that adhered to the alien ship's hull when it passed through them. In his command center, Major George Bailey watched the data flood in. "We have it," he said excitedly. "Shield frequency, weapon energy patterns, hull composition, everything we needed." The information was instantly shared with defense centers around the world. Scientists and engineers began immediate analysis, adjusting their plans based on this new concrete data. Meanwhile, Admiral Kezful observed the demonstration with satisfaction. "Send another message," he ordered. "Give them 6 hours to reconsider their foolish stance." His second-in-command approached cautiously. "Admiral, our sensors detect unusual activity from the impact zone. There appear to be data-gathering devices and primitive attempts to understand our technology," Kezful interrupted. It makes no difference. Prepare the invasion forces. 100,000 troops for the first wave. Standard conquest formation. As the Vraxians prepared their massive ground force, humans around the world moved into their positions. The alien Admiral expected panic and fear after his show of power. Instead, Earth was setting thousands of traps, ready to teach the invaders a lesson about human ingenuity. The first Vraxian ships entered Earth's atmosphere at dawn. They looked like giant metal beetles as they descended through the clouds. 100 ships landed near major cities across the planet. Each carried 1,000 soldiers in heavy armor with advanced weapons. Admiral Thol watched from orbit as his invasion began. The first wave will secure landing zones for the main force, he explained to his officers. By tomorrow, we will control their major population centers. Near Chicago, Sergeant Kate Miller crouched behind a broken wall with her small squad of 20 soldiers. Through her binoculars, she watched as 500 Vraxian troops marched out of their ship in perfect formation. "Remember the plan," she whispered to her team. "We don't fight them directly. We split them up, confuse them, then hit the weak points." The aliens moved with confidence, their large weapons ready. They expected to find a human army waiting to fight them in the open. Instead, they found empty streets. "Team Hawk, begin Operation Scattered Swarm," Kate ordered into her radio. Across the city, thousands of small drones activated. They had been built from modified toys and household devices, each carrying a small payload. They flew toward the alien formation from all directions. The Vraxian commander ordered his troops to shoot them down. The aliens fired their energy weapons, destroying many drones. But for each one they hit, 3 more appeared. And when the drones were shot, they released a special dust developed by Dr. Dias. The dust stuck to the aliens' armor and began to interfere with their communication systems. "Section leaders, report status," the Vraxian commander ordered, but only static came through his helmet. Meanwhile, Lieutenant William Harris led his operation from beneath the city. On his screens, he watched as the alien formation began to break apart. "They're splitting into smaller groups to chase the drones," he reported. "Exactly as we planned." Once the aliens were divided into smaller units, the real attack began. Small teams of humans emerged from hidden positions. They didn't try to destroy the powerful alien armor. Instead, they targeted the joints and connections that Dr. Wells had identified as weak points. Kate's team attacked one such group. They used simple tools, construction equipment modified into weapons, chemical sprays that hardened in seconds, even heavy nets and cables. The aliens' advanced shields were designed to stop energy weapons and bullets, not these unexpected methods. Across the globe, similar scenes played out. In London, Paris, Beijing, and dozens of other cities, humans executed the same strategy. They avoided direct battles and instead focused on dividing, trapping, and disabling the enemy. By nightfall, the results were clear. The Vraxian first wave had expected to secure their landing zones within hours. Instead, they found themselves in a chaotic fight against an enemy that wouldn't stand still. General Paul Johnson received reports from around the world in his underground command center. New York team reports 30% of enemy forces disabled, and 8 announced. London reports similar numbers. Moscow team has captured 3 aliens alive along with their equipment. Johnson nodded with cautious optimism. "And our casualties?" "Much lower than expected, sir. The strategy is working." In orbit, Admiral Thol received very different reports from his ground commanders. Communications disrupted, forces scattered, unexpected resistance patterns. The messages were fragmentary and confused. Thol's 4 hands clenched into fists. "This is impossible," he growled. "They are primitive. How are they causing these problems?" His second-in-command approached with a datapad. "Sir, first day casualty report." Thol took the pad. As he read the numbers, his yellow eyes widened in shock. 30% losses in one day against primitives. He roared. The humans are not fighting according to any recognized military doctrine, the officer explained. They avoid direct confrontation. They target our communication systems first, then use simple tools and traps rather than advanced weapons. Admiral HFY stared at the planet below. For the first time in his long career of conquest, he felt a flicker of concern. "Send in the second wave," he ordered. "Double the troops. We will crush this resistance with overwhelming numbers." What the Admiral didn't understand was that more troops using the same tactics would face the same problems. The humans weren't trying to match the alien strength. They were exploiting their weaknesses. The Vraxian War Council gathered on the main command ship. 12 senior officers sat around a large table, with Admiral HFY at the head. Their faces showed concern, something rare for Vraxian military leaders. "This resistance is unprecedented," said one commander. "These humans fight like no species we have ever encountered." Admiral HFY slammed his fist on the table. "They are still primitive. We have conquered worlds far more advanced than this one. We will adjust our strategy." He turned to his tactical officer. "Double our ground forces. Use our superior numbers to overwhelm them. Set up central command bases in each landing zone." Unknown to the aliens, Captain Heather Morris and her small team had already infiltrated the Vraxian command ship. They hid in the air ducts above the war room, recording everything with special devices developed by Earth's scientists. "They're sending in more troops," Heather whispered into her secure communicator, "and setting up command bases on the ground." Back on Earth, the human leadership received this crucial information. General Johnson immediately called his top officers. "The Vraxians are doubling down on their standard tactics," he explained. "This is good news. They still don't understand what they're facing." He turned to Dr. Daniel Wright, who had been working day and night on captured alien technology. "How are we doing with their equipment?" Daniel smiled tiredly. "Better than expected. Their technology is advanced, but the underlying principles are similar to ours. We've already reverse-engineered their communication devices and some of their weapons." "Good," said Johnson. "Now we launch Operation Firefly." Operation Firefly was the next phase of Earth's defense plan. Instead of trying to prevent the aliens from establishing bases, humans would allow them to build their command centers. Then thousands of small teams would launch coordinated micro-attacks, not to destroy the bases, but to disrupt their operations. Over the next week, the pattern repeated across the planet. The Vraxians would establish a base, set up their equipment, and begin operations. Then humans would strike from all directions, not with large armies, but with countless small teams using guerrilla tactics. In Australia, a team led by Lieutenant Ben Cooper used modified farming equipment to create underground tunnels beneath a Vraxian base. They didn't attack directly, but instead caused the ground to collapse under key structures. In Brazil, Dr. Maria Rodriguez released genetically modified insects that were attracted to the specific metals in Vraxian equipment. The insects didn't damage the equipment but created constant interference in their sensors. In Russia, a team of former Olympic athletes used their speed and agility to plant small devices on Vraxian patrol units. The devices didn't harm the aliens but tracked their movements and gradually mapped their patrol patterns. The Vraxians tried to adapt. They changed their formations, increased patrols, and built stronger defenses. But they were used to fighting conventional wars against enemies who used similar tactics to their own. They couldn't adapt fast enough to counter the endless variety of human approaches. Admiral HFY grew increasingly frustrated as reports of problems continued to flood in. His officers had no solutions. "Our casualties are now at 40% of deployed forces," his second-in-command reported. "We control less territory now than we did 3 days ago." "Impossible," HFY shouted. "We outnumber them 100 to 1 in combat troops." "Numbers don't seem to matter in this conflict, Admiral," the officer said carefully. "The humans aren't trying to match our strength. They target our organization, our communication, our supply lines. On the Vraxian homeworld, The High Command was growing concerned. They had never lost a conquest, and Admiral Kezful was one of their most experienced leaders. Yet his reports showed a campaign in serious trouble. Send a direct message to Admiral Kezful, the Supreme Commander ordered. He has 1 month to show significant progress, or he will be replaced. Meanwhile, on Earth, humans continued to improve their tactics. Each encounter with the aliens taught them more about Vraxian technology and methods. Each captured piece of equipment was quickly studied and adapted for human use. The tide was turning, not through a decisive battle, but through thousands of small victories. The humans weren't winning by being stronger. They were winning by being more adaptable. 3 months into the invasion, the Vraxian Empire faced something they had never experienced before: defeat. Their massive fleet still orbited Earth, but on the ground, they were losing control. Admiral Kezful sat alone in his private chamber. Reports showed that 40% of his invasion force had been lost. Not just soldiers, but ships, equipment, and even several high-ranking officers had been captured by the humans. A soft chime indicated someone at his door. "Enter," he said. His second-in-command stepped in, followed by 3 other officers. Their postures were stiff, their faces set in grim expressions. "Admiral," the second-in-command began, "we must discuss the state of this campaign." Kezful knew what was coming. "You wish to suggest retreat. The High Command has sent a final warning. If we cannot show progress within 7 days, you will be removed from command. We believe this conquest may not be possible." Before Kezful could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. The main communication officer's voice came over the speaker. "Admiral, to the bridge immediately. The humans have launched a major offensive. On Earth, Major Ryan Peters led the most ambitious operation yet. After months of studying Vraxian technology, Dr. Nicole Carter had completed the adaptation of their shield systems for human use. Now, Earth forces had protection against alien weapons. All teams, execute Operation Thunderbird. Ryan ordered from his command center. Around the world, human forces launched coordinated attacks on all Vraxian ground bases. But this time, they weren't using guerrilla tactics. This was a direct assault. In Chicago, Sergeant Kate Miller led her now experienced team toward the main Vraxian base. They wore armor built from captured alien technology, modified to fit human bodies. "Remember, focus on their command structure," she told her soldiers. "We don't need to defeat every soldier. We just need to cut off their leadership." The Vraxians were caught by surprise. They had grown used to humans avoiding direct confrontation. Now suddenly, humans were attacking in force, protected by shields similar to their own. On the Vraxian flagship, Admiral Kezful watched in disbelief as reports of attacks flooded in from every base. "How do they have shield technology?" he demanded. "How are they coordinating these attacks?" His officers had no answers. Meanwhile, a special team led by Commander Scott Phillips executed the most critical part of the plan. Using a captured Vraxian shuttle, they approached the flagship disguised as returning alien soldiers. "Docking sequence complete," Scott reported. "We're in." The small team moved quickly through the ship, using paths mapped by Captain Morris's earlier infiltration. Their target, the central coordination network that connected the entire Vraxian fleet. Dr. Wright had developed a special virus designed to infect the alien systems. Once uploaded, it would temporarily disable their communication, navigation, and weapon systems. "Guard the door," Scott ordered 2 of his team as they reached the main computer room. "We need 3 minutes to upload the virus." Alarms sounded as the Vraxians discovered the intruders. Scott and his team worked frantically to complete their mission, while holding off the approaching security forces. On the bridge, Admiral Kezful received word of the human infiltration. "Stop them at all costs," he ordered. But he was too late. Scott's team completed the upload just as Vraxian troops broke through the door. The effect was immediate. Throughout the flagship and across the entire fleet, systems began to fail. "What's happening?" Kezful demanded as the lights on the bridge flickered and control panels went dark. Our central network is compromised, an officer reported. We've lost contact with all ground forces and 80% of the fleet. While the aliens scrambled to restore their systems, Scott and his team fought their way to the bridge. They burst in, weapons ready, facing Admiral Kizthul himself. The Admiral stood tall, his yellow eyes blazing with fury. "You think this will stop us, human? We still have hundreds of ships, thousands of soldiers. We outnumber you 100-1. Scott stepped forward. He was tired, wounded, but his eyes showed determination. "Admiral Kizthul, you still don't understand. This was never about numbers." Around the world, human forces overwhelmed the confused and isolated Vraxian bases. Without central coordination, the alien troops fell into disarray. Their strict training hadn't prepared them for independent action when cut off from command. In orbit, many Vraxian ships began to drift, their navigation systems disabled by the virus. Others fired randomly, unable to properly target. Facing this disaster, Admiral Kizthul made a decision that would change Vraxian history forever. "All forces," he broadcast on the emergency channel, "execute immediate withdrawal. Return to Vraxian space." It was the first retreat order ever given by a Vraxian admiral. The Vraxian High Command gathered in their grand hall on their home world. 12 ancient admirals sat in tall chairs arranged in a circle. Their faces showed shock and disbelief as they reviewed the reports from Earth. Admiral Kizthul stood in the center of the circle. Though he had lost the campaign, tradition required him to deliver his report in person. "Explain this failure," demanded the Supreme Commander, the oldest and most respected of the admirals. Kizthul stood straight, his pride still intact despite his defeat. The humans were different. They did not fight as expected. "Different how?" asked another admiral. "They are primitive. Their technology is centuries behind ours." Kizthul's 6 eyes looked at each of the admirals in turn. "Technology is not everything. The humans use what they had in ways we never imagined. They adapted our own technology against us within days of capturing it." He brought up a holographic display showing Earth's defense tactics. "They never tried to match our strength. They targeted our organization instead. When we adjusted, they changed tactics again." The Supreme Commander leaned forward. "Your final report contains a phrase that troubles us greatly. You wrote, 'We outnumbered them 100-1. It didn't matter.'" "That is correct," Kizthul replied. "For the first time, we encountered a species where our numerical and technological advantages were not decisive." On Earth, celebrations erupted as the last Vraxian ships left orbit. After 3 months of desperate fighting, humanity had won, not through superior strength, but through creativity, adaptability, and determination. In Geneva, the global leadership gathered to plan the future. Captain Lisa Mitchell, now promoted to general, addressed the assembly. "We won this battle, but the galaxy now knows we exist," she said. "The Vraxians won't be the last aliens to visit Earth. We need to be ready." Dr. Daniel Wright presented his team's progress. "We've learned more in 3 months studying Vraxian technology than we might have discovered in 50 years on our own. We're already building our first true space warships using their propulsion systems." President Garcia nodded. "How long until we have a fleet capable of defending Earth?" 2 years for a basic defense force," Daniel answered. 5 years for something that could match a small Vraxian fleet." Meanwhile, back in Vraxian space, something unprecedented was happening. Admiral Kizthul, instead of being punished for his failure, was assigned to a new position, Director of Human Studies. In his new office, surrounded by data screens filled with information about Earth, he explained his findings to a group of young officers. "The humans appear weak at first glance," he told them, "but they possess qualities we lack. They adapt quickly. They think independently. They find creative solutions." He showed them videos of human tactics during the invasion. "Look here. These small teams operated without central command. Each adapted to local conditions. When we cut their communications, it hardly affected them. One officer raised a hand. Will we attempt another invasion with better preparation? Kizful made the Vraxian gesture indicating a negative. The High Command has designated Earth as do not approach. For the first time in our history, we have found a species that we cannot simply overwhelm with our usual methods. On Earth, the first human-built starship prepared for its test flight. Named Defender, it incorporated the best of human engineering enhanced by adapted Vraxian technology. General Lisa Mitchell watched from the control center as the ship rose smoothly from its launch pad. Captain Morris, how does she handle? Lisa asked over the radio. Heather's voice came back clearly. Like a dream, General. The Vraxians would never recognize what we've done with their technology. As Defender accelerated toward orbit, Lisa thought about how far humanity had come in such a short time. The invasion had been terrible, but it had united Earth like nothing before. Old enemies were now allies. Scientists from former rival nations worked together. The planet had a common purpose. In his study of human history, Admiral Kizful finally understood the critical difference. The Vraxians had conquered 17 worlds because those species fought like Vraxians, with central command, standard tactics, and conventional approaches. Humans fought like humans, adaptable, creative, and impossibly stubborn. The last entry in his official report to the Vraxian High Command read, "For future reference, numerical superiority against humans is irrelevant. They don't fight the war you expect. They fight the war you cannot predict."